Via.
Hi, our guest today is Massimo Pitis, international renowned visual designer, who has joined our team of teachers at Raffles Milano since this year. Massimo, after various experiences as the creative director in prestigious studios and agency, founded his studio in Milano in 2007. Now we have another office opened in Paris. His work, which stands out for a very lively approach to the spirit of the times, often broke some barriers of homologation. And Massimo, personally, I was very impressed when I noticed the lettering for the exhibition on Artemisia Gentileschi at Palazzo Reale, where that very icastic and breaking spirit had managed to turn the attention just with the Wagner lettering on a very classic exhibition, turning it into something with a very modern intention in step with our times. Massimo is really an excellent designer. On the other hand, his works and his clients testify to his skills and creative spirit. Rigor and creativity are the trigger of visual design, and Massimo proves to possess these virtues and techniques. With his designs, he has won awards all over the world, in particular from the Design and Art Directors Club of London, Type Directors Club. With Wired magazine, he has won several awards for such lively and detailed editorial graphics, turning a magazine to an awaited appointment. For me, is the same. Also for creative solution with which he stands out and is great. At Raffles Milano, we are very proud to have a teacher like him, and I hope today's talk is another opportunity to understand how good design is the best leverage to improve every day our lives. Thank you, Massimo, for being with us again today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the incredible presentation. I just want to, maybe I'll start sharing my screen now, and I will start the presentation of my work. You said a lot, and I hope I will, let me start sharing. I think I didn't press the right button here. Sorry about that. Okay. Condividi. Okay, I think that now you can all see the screen. As Franco said, I started to work a long time ago, starting previously with brand identity. I worked with Armando Milani in New York at the beginning, actually before in Bologna. Then I moved to New York, working, doing my internship with Armando Milani. That was, to me, a master, a person that I really respected. So I wanted to learn from a master and also to make an experience abroad. So I went to New York and I really enjoyed that experience that really changed my approach to graphic design. Then, of course, I will cut the long story very, very short because Franco said already a few things. And what I do today is leading this studio, which is named after me. So it's Pitis e Associati. So I have some partners here. And we do brand design, brand identity, editorial design, exhibition, and also in the line of the brand identity, we do a lot of digital projects as well. And you can see here just a very brief selection. I will not go on this. I will just give it to you as a little tray of works that we do for editorial and for branding. So the title of the speech that I decided to give today is Design is a Choice. Of course, this is not anything new to you as designers, because design is, as you know, always a matter of strategy and decision making, and it's always a choice, because you can also go without design, and we go around, we see a lot of examples, bad examples of visual communication without design, which is, in the best of the chances, an ugly result. In the worst, is also sending a wrong message. So design becomes a choice when we want to create consistency between the content and the message we want the reader to perceive. So I decided to talk about one project, because the time is short, and I would like to really go deep on one project related to editorial design, because this is what I've been asked to teach at Raffles, and I think it would be worthy also for my group of students, which I will here spoil a little bit, consider this presentation for them. They saw a little bit of this, but just a little bit, because of course it takes time, and we also have class to do. So I'm talking about paper. So we know enough about the prices of paper, the printed matter and the printed magazine. Therefore, it's very interesting to see what is today the position of a printed magazine, and in particularly of this printed magazine, which is wired. There's some problems with the screen. Can you see it? Or it's a little bit pixelated, probably. I don't know why. I might change the file if this continues. I have another file, which is a PDF. And so this is the magazine I will be talking today. It's the Italian version of Wired. If you know this magazine, it started in the United States and in the 80s, and then became an international brand, and started to also publish magazine in England, first in Britain, first, then in Germany, then Japan. The last one has been the Italian one that was born in 2009. And these are a few covers of the period that goes from 2009 to 2014. Then what happened? No, I definitely have to change this file, so sorry about that. I might need to change, to restart again the sharing. Condividi. And so this is it. Okay, so sorry about this. I hope that now you can see better. So in 2015, the magazine that was born in 2009 in Italy started to have a little bit of issues, because the brand becomes big in Italy. Wired attracts a lot of companies and brands, other brands, such as Apple, LG, and different technical and also cars like Audi. A lot of companies decide to invest on the magazine, and they invest on three main assets, which are the paper magazine, the digital version, and the events that are created. And in 2015, of course, the magazine is the less profitable, and the editor the publisher decides to close it. What happens is that all the advertisers say, no, we think that the brand value lays in the paper. So please give us back the paper. So there is when I've been called. Before, the creative director was David Moretti, that in 2014 has been asked to become the creative director of Wired US. So the magazine was like orphan at the time of creative direction. So they asked me to redesign it, and I asked David Moretti to be on board and work with me. So we undertook this project in 2015. We changed the magazine from a monthly magazine to a quarterly magazine. Deciding to reshape and redefine the identity, as well as reshape and redefine the content. Of course, this is not just a matter of graphic designers, visual designers, but also of editors and journalists. So we worked as a team together to redesign and redefine the magazine. First step was to create a different visual approach starting from the cover. So the cover that, as you've seen before, was full of information and attractive titles, becomes more like a title of a book cover. And it becomes like this because this magazine is not, as it was, a collection of articles, but it becomes a selection of essays, which is a longer form of read, and mostly the major cases is created by asking experts on different fields to write an essay, a long text about something. So the first one is called Revolution, because we redesigned and revolutionized the content and the magazine. And this has been done like this also because we think about a magazine in terms of packaging. The newsstand and the bookshelf are quite often not different from a supermarket in terms of competition. So to have a very strong visual asset is so important. So we decided to have this very strong visual asset. And these are other covers. So you can see that even if subject and the title changes, the visual impact is always consistent. Second step was reshaping the content. So we started by redefining the content and also the summary with the journalist in order to present this as a book made of chapters, something that never happened for the magazine. So we had different chapters with different subjects for the chapter, and inside that every chapter we had a list of essays. And this is being done to help also the reader to navigate inside the content of the magazine. Of course, because we don't like easy life, we decided to challenge ourselves and to change the way we design the summary each and every issue. So what we do is to keep a general brand identity by continuously changing every step, every 3 months, the design of the magazine, maintaining a few elements in common and changing the others. So this is also, in general terms, in branding terms, the real issue. What remains the same and what does change creates the visual code of identification. So this is another issue, and I will go on, and you will see each and every time the design of the summary changes consistently to the content change. So here you can see the more we go ahead and the more the summary is elaborate in terms of design, but still very clear to the reader. Okay. So I mentioned the chapters, so the sections of the magazine, and of course this was another issue. How do we make the reader in the position to understand that there's chapters, there's sections, and they will change. So we decided to redesign, design the opening chapters as real doors for the content. And this is the first issue that we made, where I designed the numbers of the chapters, starting from number 0 and 1, which are recalling the guillotine, in French is guillotine in English. I think it's almost, it's written the same way, but it's pronounced different. Anyway, so this blade, which is cutting, it's meant to cut heads, became the symbol of the revolution, which is the title of this issue, of this issue. Yeah. And then I designed the other numbers based on a font which has been used a lot in the past by Blue Valley, and it's called Pistilli Roman. But at the time it wasn't available, not even in a digital form, so I redesigned and designed these numbers. So in each and every issue, we designed the numbers accordingly to the content. So the second, I have a problem with the visual. I hope you don't, but I see something which is not really clear. Can you see it properly? No.
Io vedo bene, Massimo.
Okay, good. Sorry, it's my fault. It's good because I know what I'm talking about. So even if I don't see it well, it's fine. So I worked on the second issue. We're talking about the map of innovation. So these numbers has been designed together between the studio and a group of fantastic designers, which are called La Tigre. I think they also teach in Raffles. And we designed this together because we designed the map of innovation. So all the cities where some innovative projects were coming from. So this is from Italy, but also we consider Europe, the Americas, Africa, and Australia. So all the world, and also the space and so on. In another issue, which was dedicated to time, we decided to have the chapter openers as watches, like the quadrants of the watches. So you can see number 1 is 1 hour, 2 hours, blah, blah. So I will go quickly now that you got the idea, and showing you. So this is a number, an issue dedicated to beauty, and I asked Luca Barcellona, another of the teachers, of the teachers of Milan Raffles, to design with me these numbers, which he decided to challenge himself and design them in outline and not with the brush as he normally does, and it became something very original and new for the first time. He designed something like this, and so on. So these are other numbers, other section openers, where I try to create three-dimensional numbers made by two-dimensional lines, and playing with the shades and so on. And I think it's working. Also, the opening was a double opener, so single page. Then when you opened, there was a question and the authors of the answers, which in this case were different people coming from different fields, from the music to football or arts and so on. So these are other numbers, chapter openers. Another issue was dedicated to health. So we decided to get back to the history of science and medicine communication, and to create something new by using something very old. And this is also another thing which is a characteristic of the magazine, that we try to create something new by using old things, like very old titles. Sometimes I will tell you later, we used typography from the 18th, 17th century to create something which is new and innovative also on the visual point of view, and so on. So I will not spend too many words, but you can see how fun we get out of these exercises that we always challenge ourselves to do. And also, this is also interesting because at the beginning we were using a lot of new typefaces. So we were buying a lot of fonts from all over the world, and we also had the luck to have Tobias Ferrer-Jones and beforehand Oefler and Ferrer-Jones who designed fonts for Wired US, so we could benefit from that and use those fonts. And so we kept using typography and finding new typography to design the magazine. At a certain point, the publisher said, you know, you are the only one of the magazine of this publishing house that is spending so much money on typography and fonts. So maybe you should start thinking about it and maybe save some money, and you can make a good design even without spending so much money. So we took that as a good policy, and we decided to use more of the Adobe fonts that were already bought as a wall, and also to go back in time and to look for very old fonts that were not used anymore, and like in this case, and we enjoyed ourselves a lot by using very old typography and creating something new. I hope you can see this, but this is some exercise that Franco will recognize, because it's something that when we started to do graphic design, we loved to do, because I started where I was lucky because it was 1986 and I already had a very small Macintosh computer. But of course that computer couldn't do much. So sometimes I found myself printing stuff and then using the Xerox machine to create shapes. And this is a result of that experience that I made there, and I did it just for fun. And the guys in the studio said, no, this is beautiful, you should use it. And so we decided to use it, and they became the numbers of the chapter openers. And also what is interesting is to put together, like here, to create tension by putting together some very bleached images and some very neat, well-designed serif fonts. So we always look for this tension between different elements. This is the numbers we created for the issue that was celebrating 10 years of the magazine history in Italy. So 2019, in the spring of 2019, we decided to celebrate the 10 years with an issue made with a lot of gold, and we gave ourselves an award. And we decided to design these numbers as golden element and foils. And the result was really impressive. So we decided to go ahead and also to design all the other numbers that, and elements and some of the letters that you don't see. So I was mentioning the fact that the magazine, when in 2015 becomes a quarterly, steps a little bit outside the magazine area, and it becomes closer to a book. And so at the beginning also the editor started to call it a bookazine, which at the time was a term that was à la mode, but we don't call it that way these days, but it's true that we are dealing with the content in a different way than a normal magazine used to do in 2014. So also every essay that we present, we design the opening as a cover. So this is a cover of an article that we did together with Marbellini. Marbellini is a couple of, I would say, image lovers that go around and find old pictures and then they work with Marvel characters to create, or in this case with Star Wars characters to create something different and to create that tension that we love a lot. So we asked this design to them because this is Fred Astaire. We wanted like a Darth Vader version of Fred Astaire dancing in like to present this idea of the third dimension of cinema. Another work of Diego Partinho that we used for this article about information. So all of these, and now I will show it to you quite quickly, are meant to be the openers of the essay, but in the same time they could work, of course, in a different format to create a cover of a book. So we always work with designers. When we are lucky, we create a production. Like in this case, this is a production that we made with Israel Vargas that works with us a lot, and to present in an intelligent, or what we hope it looks like, an intelligent way to present an article that was written by Carlo Ancelotti, that is an Italian football mister or trainer. And so we were quite afraid that the article wasn't super interesting, but we wanted the cover of this to be really challenging. This is another cover that sometimes the covers of the opening of the essay comes from a research that dates back years. In this case, this was a design that I developed to create carpets. Of course, the carpets never went. We didn't make any carpet. But what we did is to use this for an article of one of the musicians that I love the most, which is the electronic composer Jamie Six. And I decided to use this and to create this cover in this way. And incredibly enough, this was the first gold award that we got at the Society of Publication Designer in New York for this opening. And so on. So I will just go a little bit quicker on this. This is also interesting because in the beginning, the first issue, we had the articles very well designed, very simply designed. But for this one, that was the one that was closing the magazine, we decided to have a kind of mix between a newspaper and a magazine. So we decided to have a title like a newspaper inside the magazine, and then to create this kind of hacked image. So there's the White House that is being hacked by an hacker because John McAfee has been in jail for his work as an hacker, and now is one of the activists of the freedom of the digital communication and the web journalism. Sometimes the openings are more cryptic, if you want. In this case, we took not only, normally the cover of a book is a vertical, like portrait shape, in a very simple dimension, and is always like that. We are more lucky than that. We do a lot of books, so we know what is the normal proportion of a book cover. But in this case, we have 4 pages for the cover. So it's quite interesting in terms of narrative to have the possibility to have a cover that goes in 4 steps. So this was an interview to Kevin Systrom, which was the founder, is the founder of Instagram. So in 2015, he gave us this interview talking about the fact that Instagram would have become the social network more complete of the world. And he was right, because now, 5 years later, we can say he was right. And we decided to use 4 pages. So to give a little bit of breath to the reader, to start challenging himself or herself to ask, what is this? What is going on? And to have like a moment of pause between one part of the magazine and the other. And again, this is another issue that is the one about beauty. And here is where we use this typography, this font which is called Throw-End. But Throw-End is a font that has been designed lately, I think 1995. That for me is yesterday, of course. But the history of this typeface dates back to the 16th century. So the late the late 16th century. And I found these fonts in Antwerp, in the Museum of Typography, which is called, I don't remember now the name, I will tell you later because my memory sometimes has little holes. And so I found this in that museum, Plantin Moretus. This is the name of the museum. And I decided, yeah, this is the most beautiful font I ever seen. And so I want to use it for an issue which is talking about beauty. So we decided to use it for that and to create something new. So we create this complex element of lines together with the text. And as you can see here, we mix it with another font for different dimensions, for little things. And it creates a kind of a complete possibility to give all the hierarchy of information just by using the different variables of the type. So italic, bold, light, all caps, and so on. So this is the same issue, and you can see how the different essays start getting their own identity, their own DNA, by just using typography in a different way and using lines. So the basic element of graphic design. So the image becomes part of the spread, and it's quite interesting to me to go back to what the Alexander Brodovich or Menachem Akka used to say about the magazines. They said, we don't design, particularly this was Brodovich. He said, I don't design pages, I design spreads. Because it's true, you never design a single page, you design a spread. And I would add a little bit more. I don't design the layout, the typography, and then I look for an image or vice versa. I work with images and text and typography and layout together. So that creates the spread. And I think it was right in more than 100 years ago, and it works. What they used to say 100 years ago does work today as well. So here, and always in the same issue, you can see the tension between the image and the typographical part, and the fact that the lines are not there just to go ahead with the previous project idea, but they also talk with the image in a very specific way. So here again, same issue. There was the need of a typography that was a little bit more strong to face these images, which are incredibly strong. So we decided to add another serif font, which has stronger attitude, which is the one that you see in the word Syria, to help the rest of the typography to work well. And I think that the balance between the two pages is kept alive. And again, this is an image of Andy Gilmore that we loved. And we also wanted to create with the text a kind of a repetition and movement that is in the image. So we decided how to separate hypervision and to put them at the very end. So it's like the energy of the image in the center is pushing outside the text. A completely different issue. It's the one of the 10 years of Wired. The 10 years of Wired were celebrated by asking to a writer and to an artist to work together, or sometimes were two writers. So it's always in the form of the dialogue. So it's a very ancient form of, or ancient old way to present content by creating a duality or a dialogue between two people. It goes back to the Greek philosophers. And so in this case, it's Alessio Figali with NCREASE, and it's illustrated by La Tigre. It's talking about Mathematica and mathematics. Yeah. And another essay about biology. Alberto Mantovani is being interviewed by Andrea Vitali. Simonetta Agnello Orbi interviews Enrico Bartolini, which is the chef, and we produce these images with Maurizio Di Iorio, which is a fantastic photographer. Complete different issue, and you see, it's always like the book cover. So in this case, we had Roberto Saviano. Normally, we avoid to have portraits of the people that he's writing, but in this very issue, we decided to have only portraits and to have them all made by illustrators and artists, not by photographers. So in this case, Mathilde Crépier, which is a fantastic French artist, has been asked to design 3 of these portraits, and one is Roberto Saviano, and this is made with an Italian illustrator. This is the issue about health, and you will see how in the different essays, this system adapts itself to create a dialogue with either with the image and to create kind of a stronger identity. You will see it later because I don't have, it's on another page. Another issue that we decided to face was to increase legibility, because of course the reader of Wired was used to read short articles, and we now were starting to present articles that could go to 2,000, 2,500 words. So it's like 10 to 15,000 spaces, battute, as we say. So it's a longer read. So we wanted the legibility to be the best possible. So we decided to, first of all, increase the dimension of the font, because as a lot of people of my age, I'm short-sighted, so I wanted to respect people like me that has less ability to read very small dimension text. And also because when you read more, your eye needs to be a little bit covered with a little bit more of dimension. So we decided to have bigger dimension for the font and to create white space for every time that there was a text to be read. So it's very hard to find a page which has negative text in Wired from 2015 to now. And even if we play a lot with typography, we never forget that the main objective is to create and increase a good balance between legibility and general layout. So other examples of openings, which are maybe we play a lot with the titles, but we make sure that the text is super easy to read. sometimes we increase the number of pages in order to create an element which is just a visual way to play with the balance, internal balance of the page. It's not meant to be read for that dimension, but it's just becoming a part of the visual identity. But even if we respect the reader a lot by giving them the possibility to read at a good dimension and with a clear context, we sometimes like to challenge them. Sorry, step one. And I just realized now that step one is always step one. And in this case, we decided this is an opening of an article, talking an essay, where a photographer decided to engage himself in a real training as an astronaut to see what it was. And he took these beautiful pictures of his training, and that became like, they look like a movie in our idea. So we decided to give the title in 2 pages, like a movie title that is going from one page to another. And so this is just a little challenge, but just to create a different layer for the reader, which is a vertical layer for the text to connect to the different pages. Here is something where we wanted to really challenge the reader a lot, but then we have to find a compromise with the editor that is always there to help us consider the reader in the best way. So this is Noi Robot, which in Italian is Us Robot. And for us, it was clear enough because there was a robot on the other side. So it could be easy to understand that it was not NRB 0005T. But the editor said, no, it doesn't work. So we decided to help a little bit the reader by doing this. We added little lines that helped the reader. But of course, it wasn't enough. And so we decided to do this, to put a little asterisk and to add Noi Robot underneath. So sometimes we have to find compromises. Another challenge that we decided to give to the reader was by changing the normal format of the cover for a very particular issue. So the one that you see on the right is an issue where we wanted to create a debate with the readers, because sometimes, actually a few months ago, before this cover, Wired US put a product of a client of I don't know if it was Apple or Google, whatever, on the cover. And that was considered like selling the soul of the magazine to a company. So we decided to do the same without doing the same. So we decided to put a product on the cover to look like we were selling our souls, but in fact, this is a product that we invented in the magazine. So I asked to Giulio Iacchetti, which is a fantastic Italian designer that I love. I love his work for Alessi and other companies. And I asked him, why don't you try to design the next object, the next product of the future? Okay, we know mobile phones are now the product, like pervasive product, that everybody uses it, but what's next in your idea? So we started to talk together. We created a team with Chiara Alessi, with journalists of the magazine, because also we wanted some technical advice. And we end out with this magic word that we call WIT. So in the idea of Giulio Iacchetti, this magic wand would overcome the idea of the mobile phone, adding other possibilities to the mobile phone. So it was doing everything the mobile phone does, but some more things. And you can see here, we presented also a little booklet inside the magazine with technical information, design, and pictures, which are a rendering that we developed to show that it was hydro-repellent and it could light in the dark, show a movie, and so on. And also we did some technical drawing to explain all the technical possibilities. And it was a challenge for the reader. And in fact, a lot of the reader didn't get it, didn't understand that it was a joke, and that it was just an idea to push up the companies and that are still trying to find the best way to design a mobile phone to find a new product or something different. Sometimes the readers get it, sometimes we just think, okay, we went too far. I was talking before about visual DNA, and what we do in the magazine, as I said, is to create a very strong visual DNA in three levels. The first one is for the brand, Wired as a magazine. The second one is for the single issue, which every time has a subject, has a theme. So we concentrate our efforts, we focus on those subjects to create a wall, to create like a visual DNA for the magazine and the single issue. But more than that, we try to create a visual DNA for the single essay. So this is the case for the first issue, number 75 of 2015. We presented this visual essay of Vincent Fournier, which creates these animals which are fake. These are not real animals. And we just create them with photography and retouching. And we presented this with a very strong visual essay by presenting the images in a big format, but and giving the text a different direction. So this is meant to be to pass the message to the reader that first you see the images and then you turn the pages and you read the text. We didn't want one thing to distract the other. Another visual essay is this. We had the chance to talk with the guy, which is a priest, actually, with the man that is the responsible of the social media manager, is the social media manager of the Vatican, and is Antonio. I don't remember the name. It's written there. I can't read it now. Anyway, so he gave us a very interesting interview on how the Pope uses Twitter and Instagram and so on. And we decided to create a little booklet inside the magazine and to really be a little bit strong with the idea of religion, the Catholic religion, and so on. And we were a little bit afraid that he would have not liked it. But instead, he was super cool about it, and he said, oh, I love it. And so we just presented it like this. So as you can see, legibility is really clear. It's not difficult to be read, but the visual impact is very strong. And for the reader, it's super easy to understand what he's talking. Another essay was about sex in the like the AI times, where the AI is taking space in the porn world and also for sex at a distance. So we decided to do this by working with an artist, which is Andrea Manzati, that designed these images for us and to talk about the different subjects. So another thing which sometimes designers don't do is reading the text before designing. And I must say that I see it quite often, and particularly for book design. Of course, design, novel design is a challenge because, of course, you can't read as much novels as the one that you design the cover, but at least you should read the synopsis because sometimes I'm a very hard reader. I read a lot, and sometimes I see covers that just reflect the title, but the title has nothing to do with that image. But the book has nothing to do with that image, even if the title is saying something. This is the article that you saw before about the future of death. These are cryogenic rooms, and as you can see, there's a very strong identity, and it's the same issue where there was this article about the sex of the robot. So you can see from the general layout, there's a strong connection, but in terms of visual identity, the two articles are saying different things. And this is what we like to do a lot. We want to push on the identity of the article. I think this is the benefit of being working on brand identity and editorial design as well. This is an interview we made to Mario Bellini, and as I said, it's quite unusual for us to have portraits of the person that is being interviewed. We did it very few times. We did it with Veronesi, with Bellini, with a few people, with De Bevio. And in this case, we asked Mattia Balsamini, which is one of the photographers we love the most, to take the pictures of the objects that Mario Bellini was talking about, and of himself as well, in the same time with the same lights, to create a kind of continuum in the images. And we think it worked a lot. And this is the same issue. You can see here the work has been done by Mustafa Sabah, and it's a completely different layout. Also, as you can see, sometimes we love to celebrate typography, like in this case, to give the S this space, and just to enjoy the shape of this letter, and to create a hero, like it was a photography. And by this is something that has been awarded by an article on Mac Culture that we are very proud that we've been subject of that article for Mac Culture. Same essay, same issue, and you can see how the system creates a different layer, even if it's a very, very organized system. You can see here the lines and the typography is always the same dimension for all the titles, but you can see how it adapts to the different content. And this is very important in editorial design because you want to create something that is consistent, but you don't want to lose the possibility to characterize every single essay for its own sake.
Massimo, abbiamo anche delle domande che volevo dire.
Ok, scusa perché mi sono distratto e non le ho guardate. Ok, it's quite difficult to me, è difficile per me riuscire a seguire, perché non posso, mentre c'è lo schermo grande, vedere le domande. Questo è il
problema. Che le traduciamo noi allora, aspetta.
Ok, so I see there's questions, so I'm trying to understand how can I access to this. Let's see. Oh no, now I think I got it. Okay. No. It's better if I go back and you. Shall I go ahead or shall I stop for the questions?
So if you want, I can read to you the question. Hello Massimo, please allow me to ask a question concerning design in general. If we understand design as a form-finding process, that means a process in which the designer is looking for the best and most meaningful form, aesthetic or functional. What do you think our design will develop in, let's say, 2030? How will this molding process be guided and dominated?
Okay, no, maybe this is a kind of question that I can answer at the end, because I think that I thought it was about something that I presented. So I see this as a very general question about what's the next steps of design in the, let's say, next 10 years. So
okay, if you go ahead for the conclusion, because I remember you that it's fantastic for you, but they have some lessons at 3 p.m. and so we have to go to the conclusion.
Okay. So I go ahead quite quickly, just by adding the fact that, for instance, in this essay, we also find sometimes interesting to create a continuum between images, and so to go outside the spread. And I just go quickly on this because I think you can just enjoy the images now. And again, this is what I said about creating identity for every single essay. Okay, this is another. Okay, anyway. Sometimes we have different kind of content. So in this case, we have files, very short files, talking about innovation. So they come in a very different shape. They are not long essays. So we decided to redesign this part of the magazine with this completely different layout. We redesigned the grid for this because we needed a complete different approach. Also, for the reader, it's easy to understand that these are each and every one talking about a single subject. In another case, here we have the statistics of the Ipsos, which is an Italian data collector, and we decided to present this in a completely different way. As you can see, there's a more organized relationship between the essay and the information, the visual information. So, of course, normally we deal with long essays, but when we don't have that, we don't bend the content to our layout, but we adapt the layout to the content. In these cases, for instance, we had a chapter that had consistently related content. So we decided to work with one artist and to create a continuum with the essays. And again, same thing here. We had an article, a series of articles, of essays, all under a subject that was illustrated by, in this case, this group from California that do this character, which is named Michela, and they created these images for us. And so we decided to do that and to create a longer. Sometimes we have essays which are images. So photographers, artists contribute to the magazine, not with a text, but with a reportage or something like that. In this case, we present a short text to introduce the subject, and then we give the images the strong space that they deserve. In this case, for instance, in 2016, we've been lucky to publish work of Simon Stalenhag that nowadays became quite famous because there's a series on Netflix based on his designs. It was a game based on his drawings and so on. So these are oil drawings on paper. Or this fantastic reportage made in Mexico with people performing in the street during a manifestation against the government with their own costumes, and so on. I will cut it short because I want to have the time for eventual questions. think I have to go to the end quite quickly. I just show it to you so you can see what I mean when I talk about visual essays. We try to create a magazine which is always surprising and always giving you a little glance, opens a little window on what's next, what's innovation, what's research, what's the next steps for industries, and also for entertainment or other things, like in this case, this guy is completely creating parties in the desert, or this work of brutalist, if I can say that, architects in Paris. Last thing is the brand extension. The magazine has now a journal inside that is dedicated to a single subject every time, so it's a big format, and this is the first step of brand extension. In a moment where paper is in crisis, we are increasing the amount of paper that we are producing, and I think in a moderate way, but in a very consistent way, and we're quite happy about it. And that's it. I will cut it here. Oh, by the way, the one that you see here on the top right is the next issue, right? That will be out in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Thank you, Massimo. I think that for us it's been really a gift, because I'm thinking that for me it's always a privilege when I know the work of the colleagues, and through sometimes we have the possibility to know the work of another designer, but today has been like a big gift to know how many things we are able to produce. And for example, for our students, I think it's a very good lesson for show through the role of creative director how many things you can change, in which way you can influence the trends of the visionary trends, in which way you can give, for example, a new idea in typography, balancing text and images, and, for example, showing that only through a very rigid background and a very hard discipline, you can give a sense of freedom through the grids, through the use of images and text. And for this reason, for example, while a very, very good example of every time that you have to put on page something, you can change the face of the magazine. So thank you, because it has been not only a show, because when we are in front of so many creations, for us is really a big day, but also because you can show which is the role in a magazine. So we are exactly with the position of the editor, and has been interesting, for example, the page where the internal cover, where you have a fight with the editor about the robot, because the final solution, I'm sorry, but has been a banalization of your invention. But as you know, sometimes we have compromised our work. So if you want, do you remember the questions?
I do remember the question. Yeah. And it's not easy, and I'm not sure I am the right person to address such a question, but I can probably try and say what I think will be the next steps. Of course, nobody can actually say what is going to happen in the next 10 years, but it's quite easy to understand that now the challenge for designers is to integrate the digital platform with the printed magazine. I'm just talking about the magazine, not about design at large, because what I think is still missing in a general, in general terms, not everywhere, because there's good example of the opposite, is the good integration between the printed object and the digital platform. Sometimes they just go in very different directions. And while Italia is an example, the digital, I'm not even involved in the digital part. And this is a lack of strategy of both editors and publishers and designers, because there's designers that specialize themselves on the digital realm and designers that specialize themselves in paper. And they don't see that the two things are so connected and will be even more connected, because I don't think that paper will ever disappear, but of course, paper and digital will have a complementary role if they can integrate and use themselves in the right way. So I think if I can suggest something to a student is to don't take one role, but to keep the mind open to everything and to learn everything and integrate the most possible elements together to create something that works. That doesn't mean that what is on paper should look like what is online. Not at all, but must be integrated in a brand identity vision.
Okay. Thank you very much, Massimo. Thank you for our students and public connected. I was so happy because you mentioned your first teacher, Armando, that is a teacher in Raffles, Milano, is a friend of mine, of course. You mentioned, for example, Luisa, Milano, La Tigre, and other teachers, and Luca, that is a teacher of us. So we are really a very big team, and so thank you very much for your time and for teaching in Raffles, Milano. Thank you very much to all.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Via.